Might be his last meeting.
So
He's worried.
I was at school today, and like one of the things that they were talking
I
about
had one of
was
these before.
the Time's Up movement and how
So we do
harassment
have one
is
public comment
prevalent in
here.
society. There's always
From Jan.
I am so in trouble. One day, one of the social workers said something to me.
You get a park name
By the
after.
way, if that was offensive, I apologize. I didn't mean to harass you. And he just started laughing.
Yeah, it's up by,
I grew up in Big John's house. I
yeah.
don't know how not to be harassing.
west of
Well, you guys used to live right there behind the hardware store, behind the
Did you get the email that Bob's?
big two-story house, didn't you? Your dad
Take
lived
forever
downstairs.
tonight.
They've always lived in the
He
same
called
house that my mom and
today,
dad live in right now.
Really?
They moved there in 1978.
Really? I thought your
I
dad
was on my
and mom
lunch
lived
break
there
and I
for a while.
responded to Lindsay's, just
So
CC you on it, but
my
he's not coming.
dad
Didn't say a reason,
Well,
and I don't
1,000
think
years
she
ago.
asked, so.
Okay.
I'm
He had
not
like all
sure.
kinds of jobs, but then he worked for
Going on, but
um,
I guess we're all here. You ready?
Door Gas.
Yes, he did. I remember that.
Heats up,
And then that's when he got transferred to Plainfield.
too, huh?
When they like got bought out.
Oh, yeah.
I think they might have still been Northern Propane when he moved to Plainfield.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we have always lived right
You
down
always
for the
have.
street from the Catholic
Yeah,
church.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you lived there for a while.
We moved there in
Oh,
1978.
Ruth's up there. I'm counting. Yeah. I'm thinking, well, how do we explain that?
I think so. Yeah.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Megan will do roll call.
Mrs. Krentz?
Here.
Mr. Heisey?
Here.
Mr. Tim? Mr. Cap?
Here.
Mr. Eckstein?
Here.
Mr. Weddy?
Here.
Mrs. Collada?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Waddle is excused. Mr. Rothermel?
Here.
Mr. Kirschner?
Here.
All right, thank you, Megan. We'll stand and for silent prayer and pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with one change. We are going to move the item under B3, and that is the approval to proceed with a possible sale of land to Stone Ridge. We're going to move that ahead of reports and presentations under new business.
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 20th, 2018 monthly meeting. Motion by Cap,
I'll second.
second by Weddy. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, under public comments, we have one person who would like to speak, and that is Jan Novak. Okay, yeah.
Hi there, I'm Jan Novak. I'm the Prevention Coordinator at the Department of Human Services. And later this evening, you will be looking at a proclamation that is on the agenda to recognize April as Child Abuse Prevention Month here in Waushara County. And I wanted to take just a couple minutes to offer you a little bit of background about the prevention activities here in Waushara County, specifically during April, which is Child Abuse Prevention Month. At your places, you will see a flyer about Wear Blue. Wear Blue is a national effort or initiative to ask people to participate in wearing royal blue on April 6th, which will be a date celebrated across the country. And it is to recognize Child Abuse Prevention Month, but also to show support for the work that is done in communities all across the nation to keep kids safe. Certainly our department is involved in keeping kids safe every day, working on prevention. The month of April, though, is set aside to call our attention to this issue and what we can do to impact it. The other piece of awareness that happens here in Waushara County, which you may have heard of, may not, is Blue Ribbon Kids Day. Bernadette's participated for probably 20-some years. This is an annual event. 2018 will be the 26th year the department hosts this event. It's a family fun and resource fair. It will be held on Saturday, April 7th. Although our department coordinates it, it is put together by a committee of citizens and other agency partners, and it's funded completely by donations that we receive from civic groups and businesses throughout Waushara County. It's an event that combines family-centered fun and exposure to the resources that we have here in the county so that parents have a chance to see what's there to assist them in their role of parenting. We have about 900 to 1,000 people who attend that every year. So just a little background, again, as you consider the proclamation later this evening, invite you to participate in the Wear Blue Day and to encourage your friends and colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
All right, we have no unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. And Dwayne, we're going to entertain number B3, the approval to proceed with possible sale of land to Stone Ridge.
Dwayne, let me jump in first. I'll kind of give everybody a quick Reader's Digest background because I know this is a long agenda. Last fall, Dwayne from Stone Ridge Markets approached Chairperson Collada and myself to explain that he had a very good problem, and that was business was going well. He was expanding, but he was running out of room. All of us are familiar with Stone Ridge. You know that on the south side of that lot, there really is very little room there. It's very difficult even to get a truck through there. The county, beyond that fence, owns that woodland that we presently aren't using for anything, and he made inquiry as to whether or not he could acquire some of that property to build a new facility there. What you have up there on the screen is the legal description. You don't really care about that, but this is what you do care about. As you can see, this is, I'm trying to look at this. This is
3-hour fire.
Yeah, where's the highways? The highway's up here. It's off of the map, but this is the back of Wayne's facility, and he's looking at building a building here for processing meat. He has some equipment on the area. This is the old fence, or the present fence as it exists, and what Dwayne would like to do is acquire this property, which is just a hair over 2 acres, in order to build this building. And I think, Dwayne, you're going to be doing some parking and a driveway through here, as I understand.
Yeah, that other sheet kind of shows that how the semis would come around the tower.
In any event, what's before you tonight is the county administration needs the consent of the governing body to proceed with this. And where we're at is the county economic development team, working with the city of Wautoma, has been actually working on this since last year, and working with the DOT and the DNR, because there are some possible wetlands issues, but we have those resolved. But where we're at right now is we are going to have the property appraised, because this is public property and it's not going to be given away to anybody. It's going to be sold for fair market value, and we anticipate having that property appraised in time for the April county board meeting, and at that time we would bring it before you. The property can only be sold or conveyed to another party with the consent of you, the governing body. But what we're asking for tonight is whether or not you will give us permission to go forward and to basically close the deal on this. But that does not mean the property will be sold. You will have the final say on that next month. And Dwayne, if you want to add anything, go right ahead.
You pretty much covered the whole thing. The new proposed building, it's just a little under 12,000 square feet. and we'll probably be adding, I'm guessing, 20 to 30 employees. We have some high-speed packaging equipment right now being built in Germany.
So I'd also tell you, we've reached out to people that we lease land to for the tower, and we'll be changing their easement. We have not received an objection from them. We've talked to Brian Freimark. He doesn't believe that this expansion or the sale of property would impact any future improvements for the highway department. So if it's okay with you, we would proceed with the appraisal and then bring it back next month.
Anybody have any questions? Russell?
We'll retain ownership of the tower property.
We will.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, then I'll entertain a motion by Kirschner to approve, and a second by Eckstein. You want a roll call vote on this, Ruth?
No,
No.
we'll do a roll call
Okay.
next month when we
Okay.
actually sell it. This is just to move forward with getting the appraisal and getting the information for the board.
Okay. We
How
have a
many
motion- Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
acres did it involve?
A little over
Just
2.
2 point something?
Just over 2, yeah.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Pat is going to abstain.
No, I just want to make a statement that everyone knows that I work for Stone Ridge
Okay. All right.
Disposed.
So you did not abstain, you just voted yes.
I was told I can vote.
Yeah, just to clarify, Pat is a salaried employee of Stonebridge. He doesn't have an ownership interest in it. I believe it's an LLC, Dwayne?
Stone Ridge is a C Corp.
Okay, oh, okay. Pat does not have any ownership in that, so he does not have a personal pecuniary interest in this transaction. And what that means is he's not going to be enriched or suffer financially whether or not this sale is approved. So that should be made clear. Unless the Corporation Council has something else to add.
All right, then, this has been approved, and we will move forward. And it will be, okay. That was good. This will move forward, and thank you very much, Dwayne.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
See you next month. Next, we're going to move on to reports. The County Administrator's Monthly Report.
Yes. I forgot we were going right to I thought we were going to the treasurer. So I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. The highlights that I will bring up since we last met, the big things, as always, is hiring additional personnel. We hired a new building and grounds superintendent. You should have received an email from me to that effect. It is Senior Master Sergeant Picard of the U.S. Air Force. He's presently stationed in the Persian Gulf. He is the facility operations superintendent for that air base over there. So it's pretty much the same job that he would have here, except there will be no aircraft or military personnel around, or any possibility of enemy fire either. So we're very excited about him. He should do a very good job. Tentatively, he is slated to start June 25th. That may change, given that his tenure with the Air Force he may have to delay it. His stateside home is in Kansas with his wife. His children are grown, so he will come back to Kansas, and then they will move here to Wisconsin. He does have some personal relationship. He's been here several times. In fact, he mentioned Dwayne's store, Stone Ridge, that he visits when he's here as well. So I expect to have him here in late June. I see Mike Niebuhr is here in the building. I want to publicly thank Mike. He has been the interim superintendent since January and will be tentatively until late June, perhaps maybe a few weeks later, depending on how things go. But he's done a fantastic job, and that's is evidenced by the fact that everything in the building still works as well as it always has. And I also want to thank Randy Gramsey, who I believe was here for about at least a quarter of a century for his service to Waushara County and the way he's taken care of our buildings as well. So the next topic would be we have been in the process of hiring our first full-time emergency management director. The interview team, we received 27 applications. We interviewed 6 semifinalists, I believe, 3 weeks ago. We interviewed 4 finalists last Friday. I'm still consulting with people on the team. I anticipate a decision will be made definitely by the end of this week, and obviously that will be formally announced to all of you as well. One other thing I wanted to bring up is on February 24th, was a Saturday. I know a number of you were at the Watoma High School campus. The Fox Valley Technical College had their groundbreaking for that facility. You may recall that was the facility that you appropriated some funds to assist them. That should be coming online this fall. It will be a fantastic addition to Waushara County because it will allow many of our underemployed and underskilled citizens to gain those skills, to earn higher incomes, to take better care of their families, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, to have a better tax base for us here in county government as well. From February 28th to the 3rd of March, I was in Eau Claire attending the Wisconsin City County Management Association conference. That was a very good conference. It involved a lot of things from labor negotiations, and we still have some union employees that we still negotiate with here, and also economic development issues. One of the things that I found very fascinating was they featured Door County, as you all know, on that peninsula, as an economic development success story. So I'm somebody who always says I've never had an original idea in my life, but I'm not too proud to steal other people's ideas. So I got a lot of good ideas when it was out there. One interesting note was on about a week ago, on March 13th, I was here in this room attending the first meeting of the Waushara County Deer Advisory Council. That's a new entity, and I was very impressed with the people who were on that council. I was impressed with the scientific data provided by the Department of Natural Resources, and I was very impressed by input from the public, not just hunters, but people who were snowmobilers. Managing the county's deer herd is a very difficult task, and it's getting more difficult with the number of hunters declining and the deer harvest also declining. But I was very heartened to see the people involved did a very good job, and we're applying that information and that scientific data, and I think are doing a great job managing our deer herd. And it's just another example of how well Waushara County government operates. The last thing is procurement. I will save that. I know you're all excited to talk about that, but I'll save that for later. So that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next, we will have the Treasurer's Office Annual Report.
Elaine, I don't know if I advanced that a slide or you did. I somehow did that inadvertently. The pointer should be there. You point it over here at the laptop. There you go.
There we go. Okay. Elaine Wadle, County Treasurer, and the staff includes Jessica Yeager and Courtney Hedrick. There's our mission statement to provide high-quality service in an efficient, courtesy manner. What's new in our office is the new receipting module through Springbrook, which involved training of the departments to do their cash receipting. When they bring monies, they close out their batches weekly, and all of the batches are verified before the banking is done. GLs are delivered to the GL distribution reports are presented to the finance department, and we also receipt any vouchered monies by the departments through the accounts receivable module that we receive in the mail, which has increased our mail volume because of the invoice billing by the departments. That's just an overview of the duties in our office that we perform weekly, daily, monthly, as necessary. This is a comparison of the 2016 general investments from 16 to 17. As you can see, the interest rates are gradually inching up a little bit better. This is the bank reconciliation from 16 to 17 for December. This is their web portal, GIS web portal, where people can go and get tax information, assessment information. Also, they are able to pay by credit card through the web portal. This is what the payments look like. I check that daily for any of the credit card payments, and from there, then that is credited to the respective account for the taxpayer. This is a computation of the county tax and redemption receipts from 16 to 17. So we do quite a number of tax receipts per year. These are the general receipts, or the receipts from departments. And the bottom part is the actual February settlement that's done with each municipality. The comparison of the wire transfers that were brought in from the state pool in 16 and 17. This is the Huntington Bank site where I'm able to go in each day and look at all the activity occurring, the checks written, the incoming ACHs, wires, all of the information. And it's 24/7 access, as I said, verification. We do a reconciliation for all the accounts, HRA, CDBG, and the county's working account, and that's reconciled with the finance department's cash balance. This is a little shot of the tax deed process, title search, notifications, resolution to the county board, and then we take a tax deed. There are various publications that go through before that comes to sale, and then offered by seal bids and deeded by quitclaim deed. This is a shot of the accounts payable with Springbrook. So each department, when they have a bill to pay, that's the process they use. This is a shot of the invoices or the receivables. And this is the cash receipting that we use daily. We are in charge of the land use conversion charge for converting ag lands to another use, commercial, residential, or manufacturing. There's a one-time fee for doing that. And the first dollar credit goes through our office. We report to the state. The funds come in and are distributed to each entity. And this is our webpage with all of our information and links to any information that is necessary. Any questions? Okay.
Next, we have Land Conservation and Zoning Department Annual Report, and this will be our new zoning director, Todd Waller's first report, so be sure and have lots of questions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Waller. I'm the Director of Zoning and Land Conservation. I hope you enjoy my slideshow. This is it. I'm going to put on my glasses here. Well, I came in at the tail end of last year. 2017 proved to be another busy year for us. We witnessed an increase across the board with regard to permit activity, and that included building permits, land use permits, and sanitary permits. We also saw another successful year in our land conservation division, with several cost share programs coming to fruition. And last year also proved to be quite a challenge when it came to code changes that roared through the state legislature. The most significant change came with the passage of what they labeled as the Property Rights Bill. This bill made significant changes in terms of how we now deal with non-conforming uses and structures. These text amendments, as well as some other minor housekeeping amendments, have gone through the public hearing process and are slated for approval later on tonight by you all. There we go. Our office issued 473 land use permits. These included 61 new homes, 117 additions, and 295 accessory structures. In all, we witnessed an increase of about 13% across the board. It's nice to see everything on an upward swing. I always like to say it's a happy dog wagging its tail. You don't want to see it the other way. As you can see, though, that based upon these comparison numbers, and I apologize, based upon these comparison numbers and what we've already seen for January and February, and based upon the economy, I do envision these numbers to climb even higher and probably excel or exceed what we saw last year. General Engineering, our current contracted inspection company, issued permits for 61 new homes, 17 commercial structures, 46 additions to homes, 66 alterations and decks, 194 electrical installations and upgrades, and 37 miscellaneous permits. In all, they collected over $163,000. In addition, we issued 245 sanitary permits which authorized 69 new pouch systems or private on-site wastewater treatment systems, 176 replacement systems or connections to existing systems. Similar to the previous slide for the land use permits, this is an increase of about 13%. Another good sign, good telltale for the future. And here's the slide that our landowners just love. It's the mandatory septic system maintenance program. Last year we sent out over 3,500 notices to landowners, and I want to point out, if you look at that slide on the bottom left, you'll see that it resulted in just 45 citations. Really nice to see that our compliance rate is about almost 100%. It's actually 99.98%. By the way, we're gearing up for this year's round of notices where we anticipate to send out over 3,700 notices. Our office also conducts a number of investigations. These investigations range from junk vehicles to unoccupied travel trailers, failed septics, shoreline disturbances, and also buildings without permits. Last year, there were 400 code noncompliance inquiries made to our office. 333 of these reports were on file, were investigated, and brought into compliance. We did have, though, however, 214 noncompliance investigations, which we categorize as still pending. One of the main reasons for the spike is primarily due to the switchover that we had between Safe Built and General Engineering. Throughout the year and towards the end of last year, we had many difficulties just acquiring all the necessary information and all the expired permits. I'd like to report, though, that that is almost come to a completion, as we are almost caught up. That was a little psychedelic. Staff worked with 17 non-metallic mining sites involving approximately 222 active acres. Annual inspection fees netted the department about $3,600. There were no acres reclaimed for 2017, but for next year, it's anticipated that there's going to be about 39.4 acres that'll be reclaimed. Working with the Soil and Water and Resource Management Program, $68,800 was secured for landowners for hard practices. Hard practices include stabilized water runoff systems and manure storage facilities, as well as wetland restorations and shoreline erosion stabilization projects. We also tracked a total of 48,263 acres of nutrient management plans, under the nutrient management plans, which equated to about 32.4% of the county's tillable land. And right now, there are also presently 9 landowners that we're working hand in hand with regard to the Water Quality Improvement Programs, or WQIP, and on cost-sharing land conservation practices. And with regard to WQIP, this is supported and financed by Waushara County. It allows for $25,000 per year to be used for cost-sharing worthy conservation projects. In 2017, projects funded included several wetland scrapes and shoreline buffer restorations. The project you see before you just completed, that's the Gorney Wetland Scrape located in Saxville. Now, I know a lot of you are probably looking at the upper left-hand picture saying, well, that looks a heck of a lot better than that bottom right. But in reality, the bottom right picture, it has a more well-defined wetland, a larger wetland space, and after the sedge meadow and grasses come in, it'll be a much, much larger wetland, and that overall improving wetland quality. And last year, we held the 11th Annual Conservation Field Days. It was the environmental learning event at Camp Lucerne. There were over 190 students, and at the 5th grade level from all public schools in Waushara County, as well as private schools and homeschooled children. This program has been increasingly funded by donations, staffed primarily by volunteers and departmental staff. If you'd like to come outside, enjoy the kids, enjoy some environmental activities, please come on by. We'll sign you guys up and have you hopefully be a group leader. Robert, I believe my group's going to be coming out after you here in the next couple weeks. This year's event is planned for May 3rd and May 4th at Camp Lucerne. We also continue to contract with the USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, or APHIS, to provide the Wildlife Damage Abatement and Claims Program. Deer damage payable losses in 2017 provided payment of $25,278 to 8 qualified groups or individuals. This program also covered the deer donation program. Now, there weren't any other damage claims, any other animal damage claims in 2017, but they could have included other animals such as turkey, bear, and geese. We do, by the way, get a small stipend from that. It's about 6%. As you're all aware, we've all been redecorating we've been redecorating the department with a few new people due to the recent influx of retirements. We are now back to full staff of 10 people working in the department and coordinating with our building inspector. My goal has always been to be a leader in our industry and to the surrounding counties and provide a high level of service to landowners looking to acquire various permits, answer any related land use related or zoning questions, or looking to install a recommended conservation practice. While providing advice, we do everything possible to preserve our unique natural resources, safeguard the public health and welfare, and secure state and federal dollars for best management practices so that we remain fiscally responsible. I've always maintained an open door policy, so if you have any questions at any time, please give us a call or stop on by. Any questions?
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What was that?
Thank you for that nice picture of the covered bridge.
Next, we have the District Attorney's Office Annual Report, and welcome, Scott. Congratulations. Steve, I'm sorry.
Scott's gone.
Scott's not around.
I got the first letter right. I'm sorry. Stop telling me.
So my
Sorry,
name's
Steve.
not a problem. My name's Steve Anderson, and I'm the district attorney here in Washera County. I don't have PowerPoint, so I apologize for that, and I'll probably be a little quicker. I was appointed by Governor Walker on January 30th of this year, just a month and a half ago, and replaced Scott Blader, who was DA from 2007 to 2017, and he was appointed United States Attorney for the Western District of Wisconsin by the President. I previously was the ADA here in Washera County for just about 5 years, and live here in Watoma. The District Attorney's Office prosecutes all criminal actions occurring in the county, also county traffic citations, state traffic citations, DNR, juvenile delinquencies. We have 3 support staff positions that we share with the Corporation Counsel, as well as a victim coordinator. Last year we also hired a DA investigator, which is a shared position with Human Services, and the investigator works with the Sheriff's Department and Human Services, as well as other county departments in investigating crimes and other investigations and interviews. Also, they assist the DA's office in following up with investigations and speaking with victims and witnesses, and helping with trial preparation, and is also an additional point of contact for any citizen concerns or questions. Currently, our office is looking to hire an assistant district attorney. Hopefully that will be completed soon, as I've been the sole attorney for the past 3.5 months in the office. Regarding the county, our caseload continues to be extremely high. I had 47 cases in court today. Last year we had almost 900 criminal cases, including over 260 felonies. For context, 20 years ago in '97, we had 419 cases and 59 felonies, so we're over double the overall caseload and 4 times the amount of felony offenses. We're continuing to see a high number of drug cases and impaired driving cases. Heroin and prescription medication abuse is prevalent throughout the county as well as statewide. Also, unfortunately, we're seeing a strong return of methamphetamine, and which had been absent for a couple years, but we're seeing quite frequently now. I assume the sheriff talked about it, but we're also experiencing a high number of overdoses and drug-related deaths, which is troubling. One effort that we're taking to try to deal with that is the ongoing work we're having with the Washera County Treatment Court Program, which is a partnership between county departments, Human Services, and others to rehabilitate repeat offenders and with controlled substances or alcohol addiction to become productive citizens. This year is looking to be equally as busy. We've already filed 178 criminal cases, including 48 felonies. Had a wide variety of cases in the past couple of years: tax fraud cases, public benefit fraud cases, child support. Had a case recently where somebody paid $12,000 in arrearages. Statewide, some recent case law changes. OWI, all OWI 4th offenses became felonies previously. It had depended on how long ago the 3rd offense had occurred. So the legislature appears to be trying to continue to combat impaired driving. I look forward to working with you all and the citizens of the county to help keep our community safe. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Next, we have Parks and Solid Waste Department Annual Report.
I'll apologize right away. I do have a PowerPoint. My name is Scott Schuman. I think I know everybody up here. I am the superintendent for the Washera County Parks and Solid Waste Department. Before I start, I want to thank Jerry and Russ for their years of service. You've been around here a long time, and you'll be greatly missed. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about the Waushara County Parks and Solid Waste Department this evening. Our department works with and maintains budgets dealing with parks, advertising and promotion, the snowmobile pass-through, solid waste budgets, including recycling, and a small budget for clean sweep advertising. Our department employs 34 persons, only 3 of which are full-time. Dennis Urban is the parks foreman. He's a full-time employee. He's been with the county for 27 years. He supervises seasonal part-time tech and 3 summer workers. And he also often works with volunteer groups, for instance, with Fair Association. Lately, he's got a crew that's coming from social services to do some work this spring. Roger Barr is the solid waste foreman, also full-time. He supervises also a part-time solid waste tech, and he also supervises the 19 regular solid waste site attendants and somewhere around 5, 6, 7 subs at any given time. Lori Romer is our new year and a half. She's been in with us, but she's our new department secretary and is doing a great job. I know this is difficult to read, this matrix, but I did pass it out. And I just want to say the last 2 annual reports I've given have been focused on recycling and the snowmobile program. So tonight I'm going to talk specifically about parks. And this matrix shows park acreage and activities available at each Waushara County park. Waushara County maintains 12 park properties, the county fairgrounds, and the Bannerman Trail. They range in size from 1-acre Curtis Lake to the 383-acre Mount Morris Hills. Each park is unique and special in its own way. For instance, Marl Lake is on the western part of the county. It's known for its sandy swimming beach, nice small fishing lake. Kuza Lake is another example of one of our parks. It is owned partially by the town of Springwater, and the original 59 acres and 31 acres is owned by Waushara County. It's a nice situation working with the town of Springwater in this regard. Kuza Lake has got a busy swimming beach, but it also has roughly 3 miles of hiking trails that are used for cross-country skiing in the winter. Also 2 park shelters. Mount Morris Hills is by far the largest of all our parks. However, 100 of the 380 plus acres are leased to Nordic Hills for downhill skiing. Mount Morris has an extensive trail system for hiking and cross-country skiing. We also have partnered with the Waushara Area Mountain Bike Association, WAMBA, to provide beginner-level mountain bike trails to complement the more difficult trails that are on Nordic Mountain. The biggest single event of 2017 for the Waushara County Parks was the windstorm on June 14th. Mount Morris and Kuza Lake each sustained extensive damage to park trees. We also had damage at the fairgrounds and at the Saxville collection site. Park crews worked hard to have both parks open and safe within 2 days, and we had no lost reservations either at the parks or at the fairgrounds. Park trails in each of these parks were open several days later. A timber salvage was set up for damaged forest land in both Kuza Lake and Mount Morris County Parks. They were completed this fall and this winter. In response to requests for local silent sports information, this season we developed a new hike, bike, and paddle booklet. Lori Romer spent a lot of time on this booklet and deserves all the credit for its early success. We're also working with the Health Department on a project, the Health Department and the Ice Age Trail Group on a hiking challenge project to promote fitness locally. 2017 also brought more work on the Kuzo and Mount Morris Prairie restoration projects. We also started a small wet meadow restoration below the dam at Lake Alpine. I recently found out through U.S. Fish and Wildlife that there has been more money budgeted for the Partners in Wildlife program. So as a result, this season we're going to be expanding the Kuzo Lake prairie restoration. Hiking and trails is really the fastest growing recreation activity in our park system. We continue to make improvements to the trail layout and surface in some areas. This is the Bannerman Trail. A number of our hiking trails are also groomed for cross-country skiing in the winter when we have snow. This is obviously Willow Creek. One of our biggest challenges in the park system is the spread of invasive plants. Buckthorn is probably the worst of the group. We also have problems with garlic mustard, spotted knapweed, and autumn olive. That are present in many parks and now in some solid waste collection sites. Geese are also becoming a problem at some parks. This is Lake Alpine, the dam at Lake Alpine. Also at the fairgrounds, we're beginning to have goose problems. One of the reasons that we are working on the wet meadow at Lake Alpine is to make the geese less comfortable and mow a smaller area and let the meadow grasses get higher. It makes them less comfortable and it discourages them near the dam. Vandalism continues to be a problem. This slide kind of makes me laugh. I had Lori pick out a vandalism slide from our group of slides that we maintain. This almost looks like it was a set-up thing. It's so big and it's so unoriginal. But what we try to do to combat vandalism is, number one, make repairs as quick as possible. Vandalism breeds vandalism. We also try to make all park improvements consistent and simple. And by that, I mean, for example, we have somewhere around 200 picnic tables. They all have similar, if not exactly the same frames, and they all have 5 6-foot 2x10s. So, and we basically have 2 colors: Parks brown, Fairgrounds green. So, if there's damage, our crews know exactly what they need to go fix it. And number 3, we try to buy the most durable goods that we can afford, and sometimes we'll put off a purchase to the next budget cycle until we get what we want or need. Our parks crews spend a majority of their time doing routine maintenance day to day, trimming trees, grooming trails, cleaning bathrooms, painting. All this is to provide a safe, clean park environment. This is one of my favorite slides. Not just because I took the picture, but this is Hartford Lake about 1.5 years ago. And my notes say, in conclusion, at the Waushara County Parks Department, we work hard to make Waushara County a great place to live, work, and play. And that sounds kind of corny, but I guess I'll stand by it. Anyway, that's it. And any questions?
Question, just a statement, but that brochure, that new one, that was one of the first ones that I ran out of at the sports show. That was very popular.
Right. Kayaking, hiking are some of the fastest growing recreational activities in this area. Yep, absolutely. Thanks again.
Scott. All right, next we'll move on to capital improvement plan, and this is an update. You're gonna, is Sarah?
Sarah will be the lead, I will just,
Okay, so the capital improvement plan is being brought to you again tonight as request of from last month's meeting to talk about how we arrived at the capital improvement plan and where our figures came from. So in regards to this, on May 16th is when we first brought the capital improvement plan and policy along with procedures to the county board meeting. And we also asked county departments prior to receiving their budget worksheets in July to come up with expenses over $5,000 over the course of the next 5 years that they felt was going to be needed. And then you don't really see anything happening until October. That is because we met with, between Mike, our financial consultant, myself, and Bob, we met with each department going over their budget worksheets and going over different things that we felt needed the most attention. And then in October of 2017 is when we presented the capital improvement plan. At that time, projects totaled for over just about $5 million, and $3 million of those expenses were already included in the budget, so that left us with about $1.7 million that we were looking at financing through our debt. I think it died. Sorry. No, it's still on.
Touched it. I really did.
Well, that's okay. It's not critical. I do. So, also, when we presented the capital improvement plan, we had a projection for each year. Of that year, the long-term financing, there was just shy of $900,000 that was going to be needed for a radio upgrade. This radio upgrade was amongst several county departments, emergency management, highway, EMS, public health. All of that equipment needed to be updated, or it was no longer going to be supported by Motorola. So that was a large chunk of what we were needing to bond for. We also bonded for an additional $375,000 for a jail intercom system, and then we bonded for about $500,000 for monitors and ventilators, as well as cots and load systems through our EMS department. That was how we arrived at the $1.76 million. Then, shortly before we bonded, the Sheriff's Department had come back because we needed an additional $100,000 for the jail intercom system due to some things that were missed. So that took it up to about 1.8, and we rounded to arrive at that $1.9 million figure. And then this was just some of the resolutions. So in October of 2017 is when the capital improvement plan resolution was approved, and then it was also in November was when we did the budget appropriation that included the capital improvement plan. Then we brought forth in December the initial resolution authorizing the bond to not exceed $1.9 million. And then in January, and at both of these meetings, Jeff Belangi is who was here presenting, is when we awarded the sale of the $1.9 million. And then we received the money on January 30th, and to date, we have paid $81,741 towards the jail intercom system. Half of the EMS equipment was received and paid in full, so we are still waiting on the additional. And then we have also received the radio equipment, but at this time we've only paid 75% of that contract. And that is all I have.
Very good report, Sarah. Do you have any questions for Sarah? Larry.
You had a report there where it showed what the anticipated cost of these various items was going to be. How were those costs derived?
I believe we got estimates from the various vendors, and
Sheriff is sick, and Brian, the bulk of that was for public safety funding, or for equipment and projects. And what they did was they went ahead and put together a proposal, got vendors to tell them what it would cost, and basically that was what it was based on, what experts in those particular areas said it would cost to do what we wanted to do.
any other questions? Thank you so much for that report. Appreciate that. Next, we'll move on to, and thanks for the save on the PowerPoint. Yeah. Next, we'll move on to the Lunch and Learn series presentation. And that would be Patrick Nearing and Heidi Hensel-Buntrock.
Hi, I am the 4-H program advisor, and my name is Heidi Hensel-Buntrock, and Patrick Nearing, who is the community and natural resources educator. And tonight we want to share with you about a Lunch and Learn series that the UW Extension will be launching, and we've titled this Serving Up Knowledge. Our mission at the UW Extension is we teach, learn, lead, and serve, connecting people with the University of Wisconsin and engaging them in transforming lives and communities. And through these Lunch and Learn classes, we are reaching out to the community through our teaching, and with the intent of transforming lives through knowledge, which we will be serving up, hence the title, Serving Up Knowledge. And they will be held monthly on the third Wednesday of each month. They will be 1 hour in length from noon to 1 in the demo room. And these Lunch and Learns will be open to the public and all county employees, and we also invite our supervisors to attend these if it would work in with your schedule. A box lunch will be prepared by the Department of Aging and will be available for $5. And we are going to be promoting these Lunch and Learns in the local newspaper. Mary, I'll be getting you an article. Radio station, and through Department of Aging newsletter, along with our HCE newsletter. And these classes, we've scheduled them through December, and currently for this year, they're going to be taught by either myself, Patrick, or Marianne, who is unable to be here tonight. But in the future, moving forward next year, we may reach out to community experts on other topics. So our first Lunch and Learn is going to be Wednesday, April 18th, and the topic is volunteering. And we selected volunteering as our first topic because the week of April 15th to the 21st is National Volunteer Week. So we would like you to come. We will recognize you as a volunteer, and we want to share some of the volunteer activities that are available in the community and in our county, and the benefits of volunteering. And we're also going to be doing a very short project at the end of the session, which our intent is perhaps that we're going to make a simple little card, and then we're going to give those out to the veterans in King. Patrick?
There's
So we tried to pick topics that would be of interest to county employees and then also people in the community. So we've come up with a number of other ones for the rest of the month, rest of the year. The first one after volunteering would be grant writing and grant research into different grants that may be available. Next one would be on diversity and demographics of Waushara County and what that may look like for us. The next after that would be aerobics for the brain, which is a program on how to remain healthy as far as brain activity. And Marianne Schilling will be teaching that one. She'll also be teaching one on food preservation, which is we thought was a timely one for August, in that that's when we start to have our gardens coming full, and we have farmers markets around the county. And so she'll be talking about food preservations and the newest things of freezing, canning, and dehydrating and fermenting. We'll also be looking at the essential elements of positive youth development and how that might be playing out in the county. Another one that Marianne will be doing is who gets Grandma's season packer tickets. And it's kind of looking at what do you do and what happens if you pass away and you have your things there at your house. Who gets those things, and how do you avoid having fights within the family over the items that you have as your personal items. After that, we're going to have one on stressless holidays, which is in November, close to Christmas and Thanksgiving. And then the last one that we'll be doing for the 2018, we'll be celebrating Waushara County's communities and a walk down memory lane, looking at the development of the communities in Waushara County and kind of how Waushara County evolved over time. So are there any questions? We thought these were good topics, and it's open to the general public for that, as well as county employees and county board members.
Madam Chair, I don't know if there are any questions, but I did want to make a statement. First of all, thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Heidi. And also thanks are due to Marianne, who's not here tonight. One of the most important things I do as a county manager in managing the day-to-day affairs of the county is to look at the assets we have. And the assets we have are primarily in personnel and human capital. And the folks we have down in Extension have a vast array of talents that I believe that we are underutilizing. And I think this is a way to basically make better use of our assets. We have these people in the building. The cost for them here is largely fixed. And I also want to try to counter some of the disinformation that's amongst the popular opinion of some folks that the taxes that they pay to the county and to other governmental entities is wasted. It is not. In fact, Supervisor Kirshner and I were together last Friday interviewing people, but he made the statement that very few people know how much work goes into running this county, and I can tell you an enormous amount of work. And some of the things I touched on is just an example of that, like the Deer Advisory Council. This is something where we want to showcase the talent that we have in this building to the public so that they can live better lives. And I think a lot of that is applicable. The grant writing workshop would be good for nonprofits, churches, et cetera, youth development, and just so people also learn more about their community and take pride in it. So I view this as part of our overall mission, not only to maintain the roads and provide law enforcement and emergency medical services, but also to provide an avenue for people to live better lives here. And thank you again, folks.
We would like to see this continue beyond 2018, so if you have any topics that you'd like to see us address in the next year, in 2019, let us know, and we'll probably put those on the agenda then.
And I'm sorry, one other thing I forgot to mention was this will not replace the Department of Aging's Lunch and Learn series. Those will still continue. In fact, Debbie is coordinating with Extension. Those particular topics are geared more towards the elderly population, but many of them also have a wide interest. The last one we had was on getting a good night's sleep, and everybody needs that. So.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, now what everybody's been waiting for. With anticipation, we are going to move on to the procurement code.
Yeah, let me load this up and.
Yep, I can take care of it.
So this is something that's dull, it's dense, but it's necessary because we do spend quite a bit of the public's money, and we are obligated to do so responsibly. So let me make sure this works. Okay. So here's our present state of affairs. Right now, we don't have ordinances or any real formal provisions in our code addressing procurement, and we don't have well-defined policies and procedures. That was okay probably for quite some time, but as you may recall from the budget, we have an annual budget of about $40 million, and much of that is money that we don't necessarily spend for salaries and wages, or wages and benefits, but for procurement. Well, even medical insurance is part of procurement. So we have to tighten things up. It will allow us to perhaps provide some relief to our taxpayers or provide better services to give people more bang for the buck. One of the things that concerned me is I felt we were falling short in a lot of our contracts, and that I believed we could cut a better deal. We can negotiate for a better deal. So I want to go ahead and do that moving forward, and this code will allow us to do that. When I came in here in late May of 2017, in the summer I started talking to folks that I knew from previous local governments that I worked for, either on the county or the municipal level in Nebraska, Oregon, and in contacts I made here for their input on best procurement practices. That was kind of put on the back burner when we were dealing with the budget and with the crisis over the proposed 50% increase in our health insurance premium. So I didn't go back to that until after we got our budget approved. So in about November, I began to work on it again, and Ms. Zowski, the Corporation Counsel, and I began bouncing versions back and forth and making revisions. Ruth was checking it to make sure that for legal sufficiency, so that was the next step. Then after that, it was sent to the department directors, I believe, in either late November or early December, and we've been discussing that either individually or through emails or in our monthly department directors meeting. And what you have tonight was approved by the executive committee just about a week ago. So you may wonder, why are we doing all this? Why am I boring you out of your mind when we've been here too long already tonight? Well, the purpose of the chapter is to provide for equitable treatment for all people who are doing business with Waushara County. The goal is that phrase is that efficient and responsible use of public funds, but that's to get the most bang for the buck, and also to maintain and improve people's confidence in county government, so that they know that we aren't wasting their money, and they know that we're not cutting sweetheart deals, and that we're good stewards of their treasure. I'll go ahead and let you read that on your own, and perhaps you already have, but this is what the code will apply to. Basically, it applies to the use of all public funds that we have. That does not mean that we're going to declare null and void any existing contracts. They will exist as they have, and they will exist for whatever term they may have written into them, or if they have terms that unless they're terminated, they continue to go on. They will go on until we decide we want to change things. I will tell you that my personal policy, and hopefully that will be the county's policy, is that for a lot of our contracts, we need to put them out to bid. We need to see what the market will provide us probably every 3 to 5 years. The big one, of course, is health insurance. We did that last year, so we're not going to do that for another couple of years. But that's something we have to see what's out there. One of the concerns that people brought up was, at least internally with the directors, with your managers, was that, well, what about grants that require this or that? The terms of any grants, either from the state or from the federal government, or the terms of any bequests that somebody may give the county, perhaps someone who's philanthropic and remembers, say, the Parks Department in the will. That this will not make null any of those particular terms. So we'll be able to continue to use that money as required. So the big position is procurement officer. The bad news is it's going to be me, because that will just be one more thing I'll have to worry about. The good news is it's not going to cost you any extra money. So the idea is that we have to have a centralized authority to oversee procurement, to make sure that policies are being followed, to make sure that that we're negotiating the best contract we can, and to make sure we avoid cost overruns in the first place by holding people's feet to the fire when they go ahead and give us a proposal. The long term, and I will tell you this, the long term is to have somebody else do this. I've done procurement in other jurisdictions, but the long term for this position and for other positions is to have somebody take it on part-time to develop expertise, so that we run a tight ship, and again, so we get the best bang for our buck. As I said earlier with the presentation from Extension, we have talent here. We have to develop it. We have to give people the support that they need, and we have to plug them into roles where they can not only make sure that we provide the best services we can for the people we serve, but also at the lowest possible price. And this is going along with the procurement code that you have written, that you have before you. But the big thing, the main process that we'll go through is competitive sealed bids, and you have the details there. There must be at least 7 days from the invitation to submit bids to the opening. I can tell you as a practical matter, for the most part, that will be 30 days. The 7 days is if, for whatever reason, we need to do something quickly. But for the most part, it will be 30 days. Contracts will be awarded to lowest responsible bidder. Sometimes that comes up, so you may not always award a contract to the lowest bidder if that lowest bidder does not have, say, the experience in that particular area, or perhaps doesn't have a good reputation for following through. And one of the things that also comes up in the unlikely event of a tie, and I've never seen it, we will go ahead and show preference to bidders that are in Waushara County, then Wisconsin, and then the United States. Now, the last point is important. So when we have funds budgeted for a particular project, say for what we were just talking about, the jail intercom project, and we get a bidder that the lowest bidder doesn't meet the funds that we have set aside, but they're within 5%, the procurement officer would be permitted to go ahead and negotiate. That's a good policy rather than rejecting all bids and starting the process all over again, because when it's within 5%, I can tell you if you sit down with somebody, you can get them to bend because they will want that business. So that will allow us to go ahead and to be creative somewhat in making sure that we get the work done we need to get done. The other process is competitive sealed proposals. This is different from bids. Bids, just to be simplistic, are for commodities that we know what we're looking for. So we're talking about diesel fuel. If you're going to buy 10,000 gallons of diesel fuel, you basically ask for bids, because regardless of what diesel fuel providers may tell you, diesel fuel is diesel fuel. Same thing with 20-pound copy paper, things of that sort. So what we're looking for in competitive sealed bids is a price. That's the unknown factor, and we're looking for the best price. Competitive sealed proposals are for situations that are perhaps a little bit more complex, like the jail situation, or one of the things that I've talked about is the architectural space study for this building and for the North Annex across the street. We've kind of added offices on hodgepodge over the last couple of decades, and we need to look at the big picture and see what better use we can make of that space. In that situation, we're not going to be asking people to submit bids, how much will you charge us to fix the courthouse in the North Annex? Basically what we'll ask is for a number of things that we want proposals to address. So it would be space, it would be physical plan, it might be more energy efficient windows, it could be better security, it might be better floor covering or lower maintenance for this or for that. And as I said there, essentially what you're addressing with a competitive seal proposal is you don't know what the solution is, but you know what your problem is, and you ask experts to tell you what they're proposing to solve your problem. And from there, you go ahead and you decide whether or not you want to change the parameters of your problem or what you need. Public notice here is 15 days. We'll set forth criteria, and the discussion of the criteria is permitted with the offers, but we don't cross-contaminate proposals, so we don't tell proposer B what proposer A has been talking to us about. The other thing, and I didn't put this on the PowerPoint slide, the other thing that's a factor here for competitive seal proposals is you have committees that will go ahead and structure the proposal. That's not something I'll be able to do because I don't know anything about the physical plan of the building. So you would have somebody from building and grounds, and you might have some people here from this part of the building, the older part of the building, who sweat like pigs in the winter and freeze in the summer because perhaps the heating and cooling system isn't very good. And we'll talk to people with courthouse security about what they need in terms of security, or perhaps with the circuit judge or the district attorney. And from there, we go ahead and we get together a list of things that we want a proposal to address. And then when those proposals come in, you will have a committee looking them over and grading them. So it's a very detailed, meticulous way of awarding a contract. Small purchase and micro purchases. This is one of the things that came up when I was running this by the directors. Small purchases are for contracts that are more than $5,000 but less than $25,000. Rather than go through the very lengthy prospect of requiring bids, and we may not get people who are willing to go through that. We may not get vendors who are willing to go through that. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll get quotes, and generally the lowest quote will be awarded the contract for those small dollar purchases between $5,000 and $25,000. Micro purchases, and what I was told, some of these things are for medical supplies, Band-Aids, bandages, things of that sort, regular things that are replenished. Those things will be able to be purchased under $5,000 with the appropriate department director. And presumably, and the directors know that they will go ahead and try to get the best price for the supplies that they need. The other thing is that this is not going to be something that's gamed. So if you want to go ahead and purchase something worth $100,000, you will not divide it up into 4 $25,000 contracts to avoid the process of competitive bids. Professional services. These are things, obviously for professionals. We're talking about physicians, attorneys, engineers. Public service would be for about 15 days. In that type of situation, for the professional services that we contract for are mainly for human services, medical or mental health services. We do have some contracts now. I don't believe in trying to fix something that isn't broke. But in the future, we may go ahead and see what's out there as far as the market goes. The problem we have here, being a rural jurisdiction, is we don't have a lot to choose from for professional services. But those contracts would be approved by myself. And the reason why they would be approved by myself and not necessarily on a dollar value is because if you're in trouble with the law and you go out and you look for the cheapest lawyer you can find, you're going to pay for that in other ways. You don't get necessarily the cheapest person, the cheapest lawyer, the cheapest engineer, the cheapest mental health counselor, etc. You look for quality in that situation. Emergency and sole source procurement. Emergency procurement comes up every once in a while, and basically competitive bidding can be suspended when adherence to the code will create a serious threat to public health, welfare, or safety. So in that situation, the most likely scenario would be a tornado or a flood, where we may need to repair infrastructure. We may need to buy some vehicles that got swept away, or whatever, or repair buildings. And we may need to do it right away so that people can work there, and so we don't have water damage. In that type of situation, it would require a written authorization, the reasons for that, and we would then be able to go ahead and basically look for whoever could do the work adequately and quickest. But there's also smaller situations. When I was with the city of Grand Island, we had a situation where one of the main arterial streets in the city, the sewer system, like a lot of cities, was over 100 years old, and it collapsed, and you had this 10-foot wide hole in the street where the street had to be closed off. Well, that was not good for the flow of traffic. It certainly wasn't good for the merchants in the area. So in that situation, competitive bidding was suspended for a project like that, and we went to emergency procurement because we needed to get that street repaired and get things up and running again. Sole source procurement, this may not occur at all, but it's being initially a lawyer, I tried to cover bases. Basically, this would be a situation where the procurement officer would come to you and present evidence as to why a particular item or service can only be provided by one individual. The only times where I've seen this has been in situations with software and maintenance for particular items, and wastewater treatment plant for particular machinery that they use. I know we don't do wastewater treatment, but it would be for very specialized things of that sort. Not only for specialized equipment, but maybe it might be something where there's a patent where you have one provider and that's it. In that situation, we would go to the board, we would get authorization to have that declared a sole source provider, so we wouldn't have to go through that process of competitive bidding or proposals, and when that would open up or when the situation would change, we would go ahead. The board would have the authority to rescind that decision anytime for any reason. Rejection of bids or proposals. This would be a situation, perhaps to refer back to what we were talking about before. You might have bids where they're 30% or 40% higher than what we budgeted. In that situation, the board can go ahead and reject the bids or proposals. They would have to set forth a reason. For the most part, it would be price, but it could be for other things as well. And you may also have that not necessarily for price, but you could have it where if you have a change in elected leadership, may decide we're not going to build a new 911 center. You're in the process for soliciting proposals for a $3 million structure. We're going to put that on ice now that the new board has taken over. So in that situation, that would be appropriate as well. Performance and payment bonds. These are things that generally you see for construction contracts. This was something that Ms. Zalsky and I discussed. We have a number of contractors here in the county that would not be able to, in a matter of course, be able to provide a performance or payment bond, or they would not be able to do it and still maintain profitability. So that would require that for contracts in excess of $100,000, and obviously that would be equal to 100%. So basically, for those who may not know, or certainly for people in the audience, that would ensure that the county would have the money to go ahead and complete a job if we had a contractor who disappeared on us, like the stereotypical guy who's redoing your kitchen and shows up for the first day and then never comes back. Change orders. This is something that was also discussed amongst the directors. What we're talking about is contract modifications here. So it would be the greater of either $500 or 10% of the total contract price. And that should be submitted to the board for approval. And that's something that I take personal interest in. I think if someone's going to do business with Waushara County, I don't like to hear excuses, well, we didn't take that into consideration, or we didn't take this into consideration. If somebody is bidding for a project and they find out that they underbid it by $30,000, my attitude towards them is you can consider that a $30,000 learning experience. I don't like necessarily to be too accommodating in a situation like that. Now, if it's something that is a result of, say, bad weather, if it's a road project, or it's a result of that we gave them bad information, they relied upon that bad information, that's a different story. But if they're making mistakes and they want that increase, they need to come to you folks, and you folks need to rake them over the coals if need be, because those sorts of increases are not going to take place unless you, as the ultimate keeper of the public purse, says okay. Bid protest and debarment, that's pretty rare. When my procurement career, particularly in the city of Grand Island, we had one contract that was a little slow, and there was talk about debarring them, but nobody ever followed through on it, or that they improved their performance. But you can have bid protests once in a while. You will rarely see it, because if it's a contractor that wants to continue to do business with the county, they're not going to get a reputation as somebody who has sour grapes every time they don't get the award. but there may be a legitimate reason. And in this situation, as you can see in the code, and I won't go through the process, this is something that Ruth and I worked on quite a bit for due process reasons and for conflict of interest reasons. But essentially, the final decision, as long as the procurement officer is me, as long as the procurement officer and the administrator is the same person, the ultimate authority would be with the chair. And if we get to a point where the procurement officer and the administrator are two different people, then the ultimate decision-making authority would be with the administrator. And that's to avoid the obvious problem of having somebody being a prosecutor and judge at the same time. Ethical standards. Basically, this is a little bit appropriate to what we had earlier with the Stone Ridge situation, although that wasn't necessarily a decision to disperse money or to sell something. Basically, as board members, you're prohibited from voting on a contract when the contract is awarded to immediate family members. So if your spouse, your child, your parent, sibling, or in-laws, or if you own more than 1% of the company or the entity that's bidding for the contract, or if you're an employee of the person or entity awarded a contract. Now, in the situation that we talked about with Stone Ridge, because I know this is going to come up, that's not a situation where Stone Ridge is getting a contract. Stone Ridge is not providing us any goods or services. Basically, it's an arm's length transaction for the sale of real estate. So that wouldn't necessarily apply here with Mr. King, with Supervisor King, as far as him being an employee. Employees are prohibited from participating in the procurement process for the same reasons. The last one is something that does come up. Basically, all of us, board members and employees, are prohibited from accepting gifts in excess of value of $100 from prospective or actual contract recipients. So what this does is it allows us to go to the WCA seminar every year, and you can go by the booth for ABC contractor that may be interested in building us a new building, and you can get the free Post-it notes, or you can get the free pen, or the free flashlight, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to accept the new car. This is common sense, but it will allow those de minimis gifts that we either pick up at these trade exhibits, or that somebody may drop off for you. So that has you covered there. For conferences and seminars, basically, the first thing I want to say is that this is applicable to only a small fraction of our employees. Very few of our employees travel out of town, or certainly overnight, to attend conferences or seminars. But so we can kind of tighten up this process for employee attendance at a seminar that takes place in Wisconsin, and the vast majority of them do. That would be approved by the department director. Now, having said that, obviously the department director is not going to be approving attendance at conferences that they don't have the money in the budget to cover, or they're going to be getting in a lot of trouble with me or with you. So that's a given. For attendance at conferences, seminars outside the state of Wisconsin, that would be approved by me. And we do have a few of those. Either a lot of the organizations, professional organizations that our managers belong to, often have a national conference, and that would, obviously the money has to be in the budget, but it would be approved by me. For any of the attendance at conferences or seminars for you as members of the governing body, that would be approved by your chairperson. And the reason for that is I believe that an effective government, and I've seen ineffective governments, effective government really, the key to that is the respect of boundaries. So as a manager, I need to respect your policy-making authority. I don't tell you what you should be doing with snowmobile trails or whatever may come up, or the levy. I'll give you information so you can make that decision, but the decision is yours, and you need to make that. Likewise, you shouldn't be managing the day-to-day affairs of the county. And as far as travel and training that we believe is necessary, not only for you as policymakers or for these folks back here as managers, I think that decision should be made within that group. So that's something that I believe will be appropriate for the board chairperson to make, whether it's the WCA conference, or I don't know if anybody here goes to the National Association of Counties or not, but that would cover that. Travel expenses, this is a little, the typeface got a little small, but I wanted to just go over this because this comes up a lot as well. These points here, these lines, these rules, are not hard and fast. What I'm trying to tell people is I want them to look for the least expensive mode of having people travel and be guided by the following. Essentially, what I want people to do is I want managers to manage. So automobile travel should be by county vehicle. Now, the first question is, well, we don't have a lot of county vehicles. If this is approved tonight, we'll be looking at things, and I may come back to you probably in the next couple of months with authorization to perhaps purchase 2 mid-size, American-made, medium-priced sedans for people to use. Not to get too far afield, but my attitude towards vehicles, government-owned vehicles, is you want to own as few as possible, and you want to run them into the ground. So you want to have a car that you're going to be putting 150,000 miles on in a couple of years, because that is the most effective way to use it. I've seen governmental entities where they have sedans that are 12 years old and they have 30,000 miles on them. That's just in a very expensive metal sculpture sitting in a parking lot somewhere. So we will never have enough county vehicles to eliminate the possibility of people being paid mileage. If we do, we own too many of them. So we're going to try to have people travel by county vehicle rather than paying them the 54.5 cents a mile. For automobile travel more than 300 miles or requiring an absence of more than 3 days, we want people to use a rental vehicle. The reason for that is rental vehicles offer unlimited miles. So if we have somebody who's going to be driving to Louisville, Kentucky, we may want them to drive a vehicle because we're going to pay a flat fee to Alamo or whoever, and we're just going to have to put gas in it. Also, if they're going to be more than 3 days, we don't want one of our county vehicles sitting in an airport parking lot because we're not using it in that situation. Again, it goes back to you buy the vehicles, you run them into the ground. Travel to a destination more than 300 miles from Watoma, we can do that by commercial airline, commercial air travel, coach class. Use for rental vehicle to destination that somebody flew to will permit them to have a rental vehicle. Obviously, common sense takes place there. I can't imagine we'd have people going to New York City, but obviously in New York we tell people to take the subway. Rental vehicles should be no larger than mid-sized vehicle models. Now, we do know that sometimes when you go to the airport and you rent a vehicle, they say, hey, we'll upgrade you to the luxury vehicle. I don't care, as long as they're only paying the mid-size price. Reimbursement for taxi expenses, that will take place only if they save the receipts. When people need to stay at a hotel, lodging will be single occupancy in the least expensive category of room in a mid-size hotel. When attending a conference held at a hotel, overnight lodging in the host hotel is permitted. And the reason for that is we may have somebody attends a conference in a nice hotel. We're not going to tell them to go half a mile down the road to the Super 8 and commute back and forth to the conference. In that type of situation, we may be paying more for that room. But again, it's a cost-benefit analysis. What's the benefit of having somebody in the hotel where all the classes are being held? I would say quite substantial. So in that situation, we would make an exception. Overnight travel, the authorization is the same for attendance. So that's department director in state, administrator out of state. For you folks, it would be the county board chair. Whether or not we approve overnight travel, I don't necessarily want to have a hard and fast rule. Obviously, if it's a seminar that's, one I attended about a couple of weeks ago was in Eau Claire, that was too far to commute. So it took place over the course of 3 days, but it was actually only about 2.5 days that the seminar lasted. In that type of situation, there would be an overnight stay because you don't want somebody to drive back and forth. Also, we would take into consideration the start time and necessary travel time. So if we have somebody, if we're sending somebody to say, Green Bay, where the event would start at 7 o'clock in the morning and it's winter time, we may, in that situation, for safety's sake and to make sure people get there, we may go ahead and have them stay overnight the night before. That's pretty rare. You will notice in all those seminars that you receive flyers for or emails for, generally what they do is the start of the seminar is usually around noon or in the afternoon. That gives people time to travel that day without having to stay overnight. Persons staying in hotels are prohibited from charging meals, alcohol, or other expenses to the room. The reason for that is twofold. Number one, we're not going to pay for alcohol, no way, no how. Or Netflix account or anything else like that. But we will pay for meals. But we don't want that on the room charge, because one of the things that concerns me and that I've seen in the administration is the cost to the taxpayer isn't just in the dollars we pay out for travel. The cost in the taxpayers is the complexity in the way we do things and the unnecessary time that we do. So unnecessary time that we expend on paying simple expenses. So what we want to do in the case of hotels is we want people to book the hotel, or we book the hotel. We know what's going to be charged there, and if they want to go ahead and have dinner, they're going to need to do that and do that on their own expense and then get reimbursed for that. For meals, this segues into meals. When we have round-trip travel in excess of 4 hours that takes place in a day, extends over the normal time for a particular meal to be served, and that meal is not provided by an event organizer, there's a typo, I apologize, reimbursement shall be no more than the following. So, real-world example. You are supposed to go down to Madison for some seminar that starts at 9 a.m. and ends at 4 p.m. And actually, I had a situation like that. I went to a procurement training at the Department of Administration. Over the noon hour, that the person would be in Madison. If the meal is not provided as part of the event, then we would go ahead and reimburse. And the maximum figures are there. And I want to tell you how I arrived at those maximum figures. Uncle Sam, who was our friend, comes up with all sorts of data for all sorts of things. As you know, we listen to Uncle Sam when we decide how much to reimburse people for mileage, because the Internal Revenue Service says it's 54.5 cents a mile, and they revise that every year. They have a lot of folks in Washington, economists, et cetera, who look at the price of doing things. They look actually in the area of meals. They look at the price of meals in different areas of the country. And right now, the United States government says the daily meals expense for non-metropolitan Wisconsin, that's us, that's not Milwaukee or Madison, is $51 a day. So if you notice, this adds up to $50 a day. And I don't believe it's an excessive amount of money. Breakfast for $10, lunch for $15, even dinner in the evening when someone's at a conference at a hotel or with restaurants in a downtown in a city, $25 is not an excessive amount of money, particularly when you consider gratuity that we hope that our people pay, which would come out of that as well. So I would caution you to not to look askance at that, because there are two things I want you to consider. First of all, the fiscal impact on the county is minimal. It's minimal because we don't have a lot of people traveling, and when they do travel and they go to conferences, most of those meals are already covered. When I was at the WCMA conference in Eau Claire, I arrived, I started at 3 o'clock on a Wednesday, it ended at noon on a Friday. The only meals they didn't cover was dinner Thursday night and lunch on Friday. So in that situation, if I went ahead and asked for reimbursement, and I didn't because I'm too lazy to keep receipts, that would be $40. So that is not going to have a big fiscal impact on the county. But where it will have a big fiscal impact is if you take the position that that's an excessive amount of money. Is one of the biggest problems I have is in recruiting and retaining talent. And I can tell you, particularly for people we're trying to hire who may come from a private sector background or may have advanced degrees or skills or things like that, they don't necessarily appreciate being treated like they're some kid working the lunch shift at McDonald's. So I would caution you against taking the position that is excessive. I can tell you in the realm of the public, not only the private sector, but the public sector, that is quite modest. So I just wanted to make that point. The meal reimbursement policy is applicable to all of you, to the employees, and also volunteers traveling on county business. I found out that we have a number of people in the Department of Aging and the Human Services Advisory Board, people who travel on county business, who serve in those capacities. They don't earn a nickel in salary. My attitude, and I hope it's your attitude too, is if we're sending them somewhere over the course of the lunch hour, I think the taxpayers can go ahead and pay the cost of lunch. And if they complain, what we would do is we remind the taxpayers that the value of the services we get from the volunteer labor runs into the thousands and thousands of dollars annually. Meal reimbursement, this is a no-brainer. It's not provided for spouses, family members, or the friends you may take along with you. They're on their own, or you can pay for those meals. Employee recognition expenses. This came to a head last year. You may have recalled that we had a bit of a ceremony here at a county board meeting a few months ago. We had some employees in the Sheriff's Department who did some life-saving efforts. I don't believe that that's inappropriate to spend up to $50 to purchase a plaque to recognize those people for exemplary service. That doesn't mean, Joe came to work every day last week, so we're going to give him a plaque. That's obviously for things that go above and beyond. For the first paragraph, meals and non-alcoholic beverages would be authorized not to exceed $20 per person, no more than twice in a calendar year. The one event that many of you attended was the employee holiday luncheon that we had down in the demonstration room in December. We invited employees. Obviously, we invited all of you. We invited the members of our various boards. We invited retirees. I will tell you, I'm quite confident to say that it was a success. People appreciate it. They didn't just appreciate the fact that they got a free meal. They appreciate the fact that the county government recognized them and exhibited a concrete way of saying that we value their efforts on behalf of the people of Waushara County. Just to give you an idea of what that meal cost, it cost, I think, Michelle, was like $18.60 or $18.70 per person, so it would come under the $20. The twice in a calendar year, just so you know, what I plan on doing is having some sort of family picnic in one of those beautiful parks that Mr. Schuman showed you slides of earlier. That would be on a Saturday. It would be an event that people could bring their families, their kids particularly, and we would have basically your typical barbecue, bratwurst, hamburgers, potato salad, things like that. The attendance at that, my guess, will not be anywhere near what it was for the Christmas luncheon, if for no other reason than it's a beautiful summer Saturday. People may not want to spend that Saturday afternoon with people they spend all week with, but that's their business. So that would cover us under that situation as well. Also, employees who retire who've been here more than 10 years, I don't think it's inappropriate for the county to spend $50 to recognize their retirement. And basically what this would go for is the purchase of a sheet cake with the message, Happy Retirement Joe, or something like that. I don't think that that's inappropriate. All those expenses would require my prior approval, not because I'm hungry for power, but because I believe that when we do these things, if someone messes up, that would be me, and I should be held responsible. Or if someone has concerns about it, they would be able to come to me. They would know where the decision is being made rather than to run around to this department or that department. That's all I have. I hope all of you are still awake. If you have any questions, I'd certainly like to hear them. Yes?
It puts a lot of responsibility on you.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm wondering what happens if you're not available to make the decision.
Well, I think that if we're talking about the only thing where that would be a problem as far as communicating with me with modern technology, with email and cell phones, would be if it was a tornado went through here where I would be out of town. And I will tell you that is a concern, and that's something we're going to have to address. And I don't want to show my cards right away because I'm still working this over in my mind. I do believe we have poor succession planning here in the county, particularly in the administration. I think at some point in the future we're going to need to have somebody who would have the title of deputy administrator, and they would have a menu of responsibilities. Procurement might be one of them. Human resources might be one of them. Public information, social media, press releases, things like that. As I've told many of you, Waushara County is a county that's big enough that we have all these responsibilities, but it's not so big that we can give them to one particular person to keep them busy all day long. So that is something that you're right, Supervisor Tim. We don't have that problem solved right now, and it is a hole in our plan. But hopefully sometime in the future, the contingency planning would take care of that, not only with my department, but with all the departments. So that if somebody gets hit by a truck, somebody will be able to step into place the next day.
That's what I was wondering about, if you become incapacitated or something.
Yes, well, in that situation, then I expect there probably will be a coup amongst some of these people, and they'll remove.
And if it was an emergency situation, we have our declaration of emergency procedures, which comes to the board and goes to the board chair.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for your attention. I want to tell you that this presentation was not nearly as tedious as the all-day seminar on procurement I was at a few weeks ago in Madison. Thank you.
Now I will entertain a motion. Motion by Pat King, second by Mark Kirschner, to approve the procurement code. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, we will have a civil rights compliance plan, and I believe that would be Ruth.
So every 4 years, if we get any money from the state or federal government for any program, they require us to do a civil rights compliance plan, which basically says that we promise that we will not discriminate for any reason. So the 11 pages of the civil rights compliance plan that were in your packet is the actual part that needs to be submitted to the state, saying that we promise we're not going to discriminate against anyone. This is the rest of the plan. If anybody would like to read it, they're more than welcome to. The majority of the rest of the plan consists of data consumer sheets, which basically is looking at what the population is in West Sheriff County, either the full population or certain programs that we get money for, only certain people are entitled to, like they might only qualify if you're under 18, or they might only qualify if you're over a certain age. And so then you look at that population, and then you look at the last year that we have available, the population that we serve, and we look to see whether or not we're serving the same percentage of people in these different categories that the compliance plan is looking at. So we're looking at race, we're looking at ethnicity, we're looking at gender and disabilities. And so we look to see, is there a population out there that we're really underserving, or are we kind of serving representative of our population? All of our programs in the county are only time you can get denied is if the program itself has a qualification. For instance, there are certain programs that are income limited. So if you have above a certain income, you don't qualify, so then you get disqualified for that. There are certain programs that if you're not below or above a certain age, you get disqualified. There are certain programs that if you don't have a certain diagnosis, you get disqualified. But those are the only reasons that we turn people away. And so I would thank all of the departments who helped me fill out their sheets, and I would say that for the majority of them, we are either serving more than the percentage of people that it looks like in our county based on those scales. So it's divided up or relatively close. So I think that we're doing a good job. And so we have to do this every 4 years. So the plan that you have to approve tonight is for the years 2018 through 2021, and then it will happen again after that. But the 11 pages that you got are the part that had to go into the state. The rest of it sits in the binder in my office if somebody wants to see it.
I'll make a motion that we accept this resolution to cover 2018 to 2021.
Okay, motion by Bernadette, second by Everett. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, we'll go to resolution number 15-03-18, a resolution modifying the Human Services Financial Manager position from a pay level H to a pay level F.
Motion to approve.
By Wedding,
I'll second it.
second by Krantz. Any questions? We'll need a roll call vote on this.
Okay, Mr. Rothermel,
Aye.
Mr. Kirschner,
Yes.
Mrs. Krantz,
Yes.
Mr. Heisey,
Yes.
Mr. Tim,
Yes.
Mr. Kapp,
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein,
Yes.
Mr. Weddy,
Yes.
Mrs. Palata,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Next, we have resolution number 16-03-18, a resolution creating the procedure to approve budget amendments.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Weddy. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Krantz. Okay, are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Resolution number 17-03-18, resolution designating the week of April 9th through the April 13th, 2018 as Work Zone Awareness Week in Waushara County. Motion by Eckstein, second by Kapp. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution number 18-03-18, a resolution acknowledging the commendable service of Russell Heisey as Waushara County Supervisor. Motion by Tim, second by Kapp. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution number 19-03-18, a resolution acknowledging the commendable service of Jerry Rothermel as Waushara County Supervisor. Motion by Kirschner.
I'd like to add one thing real quick. It's not going to be the same back here, Jerry.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Weddy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Ordinance number 623, an ordinance amending ordinance number 592, Waushara County 20-year comprehensive plan, Waushara County, Wisconsin. Motion by Eckstein.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Krantz.
Oh, sorry.
Any questions? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ordinance number 624, an ordinance amending Waushara County Codes number 8, 22, 42, 54, 58. Motion by Kirschner, second by Kapp. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Appointments to Central Wisconsin Health Partnership Regional Office of Community Service.
I'll make a motion that we accept these appointments for the next few years.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Weddy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Veteran Service Commission, James Blazik, term December 2017 through December 2020. Barbara Diedrich, term March 2018 through December 2019. Motion by Kapp. Second by King. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Proclamation designating April 2018 as Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Weddy,
I'll second it.
second by Krantz. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And don't forget to go to Blue Ribbon Kids Day. All right, board suggestions for future agenda items. Remember that our next meeting is April 17th on 2018 at 9 o'clock a.m. as it is the organizational meeting. All of you, very good luck on your elections.
Second.
Third.
By Eckstein, second by Tim. We're adjourned.
I'm gonna miss you.
Oh, yeah.
Great having you back here, Jerry.
I gotta tell you,
I'll put that as a correction in my.
my ride is, yeah, we were wondering whether you were going to.
I'll tell you what, it is Sarah's. I was in there.
Right, yeah.
Should be all by myself.
Yeah?
All right, well,
Yeah.
still, we need to look at it overall.
I just couldn't help it.
All right there, buddy.
Yeah, no, you.
Russell, it's been great. Yep.